Alexander Volkanovski does defend once again TKO's standing the Korean Zombie, who has that name for a reason, in round number 4, 45 seconds in. So, Dominic, I'll give you a chance to talk about how great of a performance this was for Volkanovski. But obviously, the more important stuff is kind of like, where do you go from here? What are the big takeaways from the fight? So, let's start with how much did this fight boost Volkanovski's legacy in terms of where he stands among the greats of today and perhaps the all-time greats?
Oh, this was big. This was big because he'd been, having great performances. Obviously, the champion. This was his third title defense, but he's been going the distance a lot. Not a ton of big finishes, big flashy finishes. So he's just flown under the radar so much. A lot of people still have the Max Holloway stuff left in their mouth as well. Those two fights, especially the second one that a lot felt Holloway won, but he slowly crept out of that shadow and kind of created his own aura around him, and people are starting to recognize the greatness. And now him going out here and finishing Korean Zombie, something a lot of people haven't been able to do, that was big. It was a big time performance. It was a clinical performance from Volkanovski from start to finish. He looked so fast, so crisp. His fight IQ was on full display, as it always is. And it was honestly near perfect from everything that he did. And the finish was the icing on top of the cake. Again, 3 title defenses, 21 wins in a row. No, he's 11-0 inside the UFC. It's the biggest win streak right now in the company behind Mr. Kamaru Usman. And that's why I'm going to transition into a question for you, because Kamaru Usman is the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. But how close after last night is Alexander Volkanovski to that spot?
I would say it's close enough to where it's not just a given that Kamaru Usman's number 1.
Yeah.
And this is weird to say because Usman's not done anything to like move backwards. It's just Volkanovski is taking leaps forward each time out. I mean, you just look at the last 2 performances. This one against the Korean Zombie and the Brian Ortega fight. That man looks unstoppable in Volkanovski. Yeah. So I would firmly put him at number 2 right now. I won't quite take that leap and put him at number 1. But no doubt, Dominic, I mean, to me, the more interesting part here is what does this win do for him in terms of being like an all-time featherweight. Dare I say I don't know if I can go there, man.
He's so right tough there, dude.
Because you basically, Jose Aldo is probably number 1, even because just the longevity
of the reign,
yeah. But Max Holloway and Volk have been kind of right there, number 2 and number 3. And I think with this win, you might have to put Volkanovski above Max Holloway.
Yeah.
If not for the fact that he has 2 wins over Max. The question is, how close is he to Jose Aldo? It's so hard for me because I came into the sport at a time where Aldo was not at his best. He was coming off his loss to Conor McGregor, and then he would follow that up. He would win at UFC 200, which was one of the first events I watched live, with the win over Frankie Edgar. Yeah. But then he followed it up with the back-to-back stoppage losses to Max Holloway. So the Jose Aldo I've seen has been great, and especially now at bantamweight had a resurgence. But overall, he's not been this destroyer, this guy that's just a level above the rest. But there was a time where he was. I mean, you look at that win streak. When he came to the UFC with wins over guys like Mark Hominick, Ricardo Lamas, the Korean Zombie, twice against Chad Mendez.
I think he had 7 total title defenses.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you go before that, WEC, which I know is not technically UFC, but it's owned by the UFC, and the UFC didn't even have those divisions at the time, so it's like, it still matters. He was doing crazy shit down there, too.
Yeah.
I'm currently in the middle of watching through all that, so what point being, I think Volkanovski might be the best featherweight of all time. Is it necessarily this fight that secured it? This fight was dominant, but it was sort of expected to be. We thought this fight was a little closer than the odds told you, but it's so crazy how everybody felt that way. Everybody said, "Whoa, look at the disrespect to the Zombie."
Yeah.
You probably could have made it minus 1,000. I mean,
Yeah,
this
it looked like
was
that.
this was one-way traffic. The Korean Zombie, to his credit, durable as all
Yeah,
hell, but
yeah.
man, he was just eating too many clean shots. The speed was too much in the favor of Volkanovski. But Dominic, I'm gonna give you a question now. So we're just gonna keep passing the ball back and
That's fine.
forth here. A little lateral here. So as far as what's next, for Alexander Volkanovski, we have an obvious option, right? It's that trilogy
Yeah,
fight with
yeah.
Max Holloway. Is that the fight that you believe, based off everything we've heard, the Josh Emmett, Max Holloway rumors? Is that the fight that you believe we see next, or is there perhaps a dark horse contender out there that might jump the line?
I think that's got to be next. There are guys that are there, but they haven't quite put together the string of wins, to get there. There's, like a guy like Calvin Cater, one more win, he's there. Yair, one more win, he could probably get there because he's never fought for the belt. But right now, Max has won 2 in a row, both
Both
phenomenal
those guys you
performances.
mentioned, Max put a
Yeah,
clinic on too.
exactly. So I still think there's even though the record is 2-0 in Volk's favor, there's unfinished business between him and Max Holloway. So yeah, I think that's got to be next. I think that fight's massive. I think it's huge. Maybe honestly, that could come kind of sooner rather than later, considering Volk didn't take much damage. Max seems to be back and ready. Now he just has to do a training camp. I mean, we could potentially see that maybe in July or so on one of those two pay-per-view cards, and I wouldn't be surprised just because of the freshness of both. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited. I think that should be next, and I don't see anything else that could potentially interrupt that unless there's some sort of injury that occurs again.
Yeah, because that right now it seems to be kind of like the unspoken truth is that July, the International Fight Week, the first pay per view in July, will be headlined by Usman Edwards,
Yeah.
and then the one at the end of July will be Adesanya Cannonier. I
Hmm.
think it would be awesome to put Volkanovski Holloway 3 on that International
With
Fight Week card.
yeah,
So you put Usman and Volkanovski on the same card to
oh,
the
the two
pound for
pound for
pound.
pounds. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, technically, Adesanya is number 2 pound for pound, so who knows if they'll.
Well, and him and Volk train together, you could do storylines on
Well,
both
actually,
cards.
that's true. Actually, that'd probably make more sense for them to put those two together, just because
Yeah.
they tend to be like a team. Is
Yeah.
Volkanovski is he in City Kickboxing, or is he just
I
like
think they've just had trainings there before,
yeah?
but he
Because I
represents more Australia than New Zealand. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, but I guess before we move on here, because I sort of agree with you. I mean, it's hard for me to not think that that fight's gonna happen next, even though I've been wrong like each step of the way. I keep thinking Max is next, and something just happens each time.
Yeah.
It seems like so. Now it feels like you just got to try to do it again until it happens, or until Max says like, "Well, I'm going to go to 155 or go chasing a counter fight or whatever." It feels like that's the fight we're always going to say is next, and
Yeah.
apparently the Max Holloway Josh Emmett rumors are not near as strong as they were, when the UFC lost its main event for
Yeah.
Columbus. So that's kind of good. I mean, I think Josh Emmett is the guy that if Max Holloway were to not be available for a title fight, I think Josh Emmett would be a sleeper candidate to perhaps
Yep.
sneak in there. Not the guy that I would probably pick, just because I think he needs like one more win. But you look at the matchups already being put in place. It looks like Yair and Ortega will be fighting. Calvin Cater might be even. I mean, he put on a clinic against Chikadze, but
Yeah.
Josh Emmett's just been kind of that sneaky guy. That's just
He hangs in,
yeah,
man.
he's really good, a fucking cracker
Yeah.
when he wants to be. But before we move on, the Korean Zombie deserves a little bit of time here. Is there any fight in mind that you would want to see next from the Korean Zombie?
I mean,
Because
I don't know.
I'm of the opinion that I'm kind of like just like not even matchmaking for him. Like he seemed. I mean, obviously he was heartbroken, but
And he even
seemed
hinted
very
retirement.
very unsure. But he said he kind of does that after every fight.
True.
But after the damage he took here, the damage he's accumulated over his career, And the fact that he said, like, I now know that I can never be UFC champion, which just hit me right in the feels.
That's emotional, yeah.
It feels like this could be a proper end. I mean, tough way to go out. I mean, you're getting beaten up.
Yeah.
You go out fighting for a title, literally showed his nickname in true form by not being finished on the ground. Like, he got finished standing on his feet. So, the people's champion is the Korean Zombie, JP. Or